Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending with where you are. Okay. I thank God for this great day that He has given unto us. And I believe that this is another Wednesday that the Lord has made for us to rejoice and be glad in it. And I want us to reconnect and just give each other some counseling insights that can help us cope up with this life when we have a loss. So I'll be talking about dealing with painful experiences of loss. And we have all encountered loss in one way or the other. We have seen lots of losses, maybe property loss, maybe loss of a loved one, loss of an item that you truly cherished, loss of a body part, maybe through an operation or an accident, loss of even a pet, loss of a job, loss of a relationship. We have experienced losses in one way or the other. And I realize that majority or most of us are usually stuck when we get to a loss. And I thought of if we share some of the insights that one can have when you're facing the loss, it can actually help us to overcome some of the after effects of the loss and the grieving sessions that we encounter when a loss happens. So loss is the feeling that one gets when something gets missing. Whereas grief is that reaction that we get when the loss happens. So when you join the loss and the grief, the first one is a feeling, the other one is a reaction to the loss. So as I have said that we have encountered, and especially after this pandemic, there's a time that, this topic of death, which most majority fear, became a reality, that we are mortal bodies, that we are mortal, or rather we are human, and everyone has a start date and an end date. And the uncertainty that was in it made majority prepare even for the after. But it also challenged the cultural and the norms that we had put in ourselves. So death is part of us, loss is part of us. And for this context, I'll deal majority on the loss of a loved one, maybe loss of a job, loss of a relationship, but in this context, let's dwell more on the death bit of it, the loss of a loved one. And I will say that this is a very natural reaction to any person. When death happens, there is that, you are lost. Life loses meaning. And this is the first stage that we all get into, the shock and the denial. Life has no meaning. You get numb, you get shocked, you're wondering what next? What do I do now that this person is gone? What do I do with the next? Like you're there, you're stuck. There is nothing that is making sense. Life has no meaning all of a sudden. You need and you desire that I wish this thing didn't happen even to me. You ask the why, you ask the when, you ask the, how will I go to the next stage? And in that, we learn that it is a natural response to deny and also to get shocked. Because if you don't allow yourself to get the shock and the denial, then something is not usual. And it is very normal, for things not to be okay. It shows that you're reacting as a human being to that loss. Because it also tells us, what is this relationship that you had with the person that has that is now missing, that is now no longer in your life. There are those who will experience loss. You could be in a family of 10, but maybe 2 or 3 are the ones who are thoroughly affected. They are so touched by this loss. And maybe the others are, depending on the relationship one had with that person, it may not have a lot of meaning. Then the next stage after the shock and the denial is the anger. Anger is a response or a feeling that gives us a temporary structure about this death. And I would say it's like the beginning of the healing process, of the grieving process. You get angry, maybe even the doctors, you get angry even with the person who has died. Why did you die? You get angry. Anger has no limits at this stage. You're angry that this person didn't push through, maybe. There are those who will even get angry with God and they ask the why. why have you allowed this to happen? I had all my trust in you. Why God? Why me? But I'll challenge us in as much as we're asking the whys, get the meaning. What is the meaning that I'm getting in this loss? As that structure to nothingness forms, you're trying to pull together. You could be even feeling like you're holding on to something that is slippery. It's not bringing itself to a conclusion. And eventually, you realize in allowing the anger, allowing yourself to feel that anger, you'll be able to, don't evade the anger. Go through it, because it's part of the healing process. Then you realize, next, I'm learning to bargain. That's the next step. Bargaining with life. What is this that I can do that this person, to still since life is not coming back to normal, you realize this is how I would have wished for this thing to happen or to turn out. Maybe I would have probably taken the person to another. You are starting to bargain that I would probably have taken this person to another clinic or another doctor. You have that serious need for life to get back to normal like it was. But actually, it is not the way it is. The serious need of, I wish it comes back the way it was. Even if that person is just there, I just be seeing them, you start to bargain. And your mind is trying to bring it back, that this person is, like in a living state. Yet, they are gone. You bargain with life. We bargain, I wish I did this for this not to happen. But you realize this is now the body way of reacting to the thoughts, to the emotions, to the feelings of that loss. Eventually, you'll go to the fourth stage, which is the depression. And depression in this bit, I would call it like positive depression, because it is that feeling of emptiness, that this person is now gone. You're now in touch with the present. In touch with the present, that this person will no longer be there, The depression that I'm not seeing this person. And especially during the funeral bit, that you now release even the body to the soil, depending on whichever mode you're using for resting the remains. You realize there's an emptiness, that that void, the vacuum in a person, that you no longer see this person. The depression, the circumstances will never be the same again. You get that bit of depression that comes with the emotions of sadness. You feel emotionally disconnected. There are people who will not even want to be visited or to be told anything by anyone. There are people who will, you withdraw to the natural things that probably you loved. And then eventually, there is a last stage of acceptance. And acceptance does not mean that everything is okay. It only means that you have accepted the new state of life, that I'll no longer be with this person. So accepting that life has to move on. Accepting that life has its own beginning and the end. That bit that you now know that I have to move on with life, I may not bring this person back, but at least I can leave probably the legacy that person lived, depending on the relationship and the meaning that this death and this loss has given you. So grieving is not, I would say it's not something that happens on a straight line. At one moment, you could be feeling very angry with this death. At the next moment, you could go back to the shock and the denial. So it's not like a straight thing that it will happen, denial, and all that. I mean, it will happen, the shock, and then the shock, the denial, the anger, the bargaining, the acceptance eventually. No, it's not a linear thing. It can happen in any way. You could even meet with somebody and realize they're dressing in the same shirt that a loved one of mine was wearing. And immediately you start feeling angry. And probably the other one, you could realize, I'm no longer able to put that bulb. Like, my beloved was helping me put up. And you start, beginning with life. And eventually, you accept that it has happened. So we learn from the loss and grief, and especially of loved ones. This process may also help you in other losses, even the loss of a phone, the loss of something that you treasure. Because, loss happens. But I was saying in this context, the loss of a loved one, it comes with deep emotions of connections and the attachments. So allow yourself to go through those stages. Don't feel like it is unusual for you to go through them, And then you realize, I was reading in the Bible, the second book of Samuel, chapter 12. David's son got very ill. And David prayed and fasted. And I'm sure that's very normal, Sometimes we fast, we pray that our beloved ones would get back to life. And eventually the son died. And the attendants were even afraid of telling David that your son is dead. But guess what? When he was told that his son is dead, when they were even fearing telling him, in fact, he's one who asked him, is a child dead? And they all answered him, yes. And we see in the Bible that David requested for food and drinks, and he ate. In fact, he removed the sackcloths. He ate, he drank, and he even started, living another normal life and progressing on. This story teaches me and you of three things: accept, adjust, and advance. David accepted that it has happened. He adjusted his life, that life has to continue, and eventually he advanced. In fact, the next chapter or few verses tell us of the birth of Solomon as one of his children. So, my dear brethren, loss is something that will happen to each and every one of us at some stage. And I believe that we shall be helped by some of these tips. Allow the denial to come, the shock. Don't be shocked, that you don't feel like it's unusual. But how we get the meaning of the loss is what will help us in the grieving sessions. Otherwise, allow yourself to the grief to happen, so that it will not be chronic grief or exaggerated grief, which brings out some maybe bad behaviors, like maybe people who go into drinking, thinking, because you are numbing the process. There are those who will go into drugs, there are those who will go to the other now side of the bad depression. So don't allow yourself to go to the chronic grief and the exaggerated grief. Allow yourself to go through the grieving process, and eventually you'll overcome. I'll not tell you it will be a smooth thing. I'll not tell you that you'll not forget your beloved, but at least you'll be having, you'll gather up the small pieces of acceptance, the small pieces of the pain, and you realize you're able to cope up, you're able to form a new world around yourself, new relationships, you get new meaning to life of how life is, there's a season for this life, and probably even prepare your afterlife. We are only able to probably tell you how you can deal with it right now, because the afterlife is in the hands of God, and your relationship with the deity that you believe in, and in this case as Christians, will also help you overcome the grief. It will help you go through the grief process, and eventually you'll be healed and you'll be able to tackle life that is ahead of you. May the Lord bless you. May the Lord help you even in the losses that you encounter, and know that you are not alone. And for us Christians, let us be more empathetic to each other. Let's avoid saying pole, because pole may not bring back the person, but help the other person. But just being there for that person, giving a shoulder to cry on, helping them, in that process, in the grieving process, and allowing them to be as normal as possible as they go through the process. I'll not tell you it's a 1-year thing or a 2-year thing or even a monthly thing. But let's encourage each other in this journey, because you're never alone. You're never a vacuum. The Lord bless you. Thank you.